This
that is
conference will now be recorded.
is that this div that is the parent is actually more or less like a tree, in the sense that this div comes first, and then the button is more or less like a child branch, and then it keeps extending like that, like that, like that, like that. So now, basically, what DOM manipulation is all about is that it's this whole structure here, you can actually manipulate it using JavaScript, which is you really don't need to, like, maybe for example you put something on a web page that you'd like to change in a dynamic manner. Maybe when someone clicks a button, you want a particular text to change, or when someone, sorry, first of all, I should have actually mentioned this. So the DOM itself, as DOM, means the document, it means document object model. So it's more or less like an interface, an HTML interface, an XML interface that defines the logical structure of what an HTML document looks like. So it also gives you a way to actually manipulate it. So, like I was saying, maybe for example, I put this button on this page, I named it a button, and I want to be like, if I click this button, I want the text inside the button to actually change. Now, I cannot actually do something like, sorry, there's no way for me to actually know that that has actually happened in using normal HTML. So it's not like maybe when the user clicks a button, I don't wouldn't have access to this document any longer, or to the instance of this document on the user's browser. So there's no way for me to actually be able to change this thing in normal HTML. You can't actually go to use every user's computer and start retyping the value of that button. I don't think that's possible. So what you can do is to actually use JavaScript to do that. It gives you the ability to be dynamic that way. So the method for doing that is by actually manipulating the document object model. That's the DOM. So you use your JavaScript to manipulate the document object model. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. Um, all right. So let's do our normal HTML. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. My screen froze. Is it back up now? Oh wow. Is this happening to only Candy, or is anybody else having the same issue? Is anybody else's screen frozen? Oh, okay. Candy, please, can you disconnect and connect again? Okay. So yes, kindly disconnect and connect again, please. So let's look at this. Now let's have a button, and let's say it is called a button like this. So viewing this page, hmm, okay. Let me just make the button look a bit better, a bit more clear. Let me make the button a bit clearer because I think it's just plain white. Um, Let me just make it red. Let's make the height. So I think the button is clear now. Now, this is what I'm going to do. On the click of this button, I want okay. On the click of this button, I want to actually okay. On the click of this button, I would like to print a text on this page. Or okay, let me just put a text there. Sorry, my PC is acting up a bit. I haven't slept in a couple of days. Um, yeah. So my PC is acting up now. Hmm, okay. Let's say the text right now here in an H1 tag is hello. And what I want to do is, as soon as I click that button, I want to print maybe hello doing. As I want to replace this text inside this H1 with hello doing or hello level up, whatever the case may be. I will show you how to do that in a minute. All right. So a couple of things I would like to point out here first. Now, would you all know about the script tag? The script tag, you can actually type in your JavaScript in an HTML page. You all know about that. All right, cool. So you also know that there are two ways in which you can make use of that script tag. You can either link it to an external document, or you can use something in there, or you can make use of it inline. Okay. Or you can make use of it inline. Now, I'm going to go through both methods. I would advise you avoid using it inline as much as possible. Although I would do that a lot so that we can have the code on the same page. But I would advise you avoid using it in this HTML script as much as possible for two reasons. One, so that your HTML document wouldn't be too bloated, that it won't be too big and too many. You have too many lines of code. That actually makes things harder to maintain. And secondly, for you to be able to separate your concerns. Now, your HTML is meant to be what you call your presentation layer. It's meant to be what you call your presentation layer, which means the only thing it's meant to be used for is to actually present what your web page should look like. While your script actually contains your logic. So it's more or less like a logical layer. Now, you shouldn't be mixing both of them. So that anytime you have a problem, you actually know exactly where to go and look. If you mix your logic, that's your JavaScript, with your HTML, if there's an issue, it might be a bit harder to debug because everything is bloated, it's kind of big. So it makes more sense for you to actually just separate them as much as possible. Although, like I said, I'll be using the inline method a lot. All right. Then, and one other thing is this: don't ever put your scripts in your head. Don't ever do that. The reason is this: the way your HTML page loads, it will load everything inside your head first before displaying anything on the page. Now, your JavaScript is something that doesn't have to do with what your web page looks like. Most of the time, it doesn't have to do with that. Your CSS is what you really need to make your web page look the way it should. So if you now put in what you don't really need for your page to load in your head, means that your HTML will try, your web page or your website will actually try to load your JavaScript as well from the beginning, even when it doesn't really need it yet. So what you should do rather is you should put your script at the end. That's just before the closing tag of the body. You should put it somewhere. There are some very rare occasions where you might need to put it in your head, but like I said, very rare. So always remember you should try and put it at the end, not at the beginning, like that. Now let's test if this script tag works. So this is the script tag. What this is used for is it's used to write JavaScript inside an HTML document. So your HTML will be able to say separate your JavaScript from your regular HTML. This is your regular HTML. And then anything inside this script tag, from this script tag to this closing script tag, will be considered your would be your JavaScript. It's different from when you want to write your CSS. Your CSS will be inside what you call your style. So now this is one method here, which is this is the inline method. Let's just test it and see if it works. Hello world. Now to do that, your Chrome gives you a very convenient way to do that. You can just come here, you can do more tools, and you can do developer tools. So let's just come to console. Now if I refresh this, you can see it, hello world, like that. So that means this script tag actually works. Now for the for the external file version, let's say I have something like this. Let me just name it something generic. Let's just say JavaScript file or JS. And let's also put hello world. Now, there's one other thing I would like to point out here. It's not actually compulsory, but for your document to actually be descriptive, it is best to give your script a type, because the script is not used for just only ordinary JavaScript. There are other things you can actually use it for as well. So you can just say type equals application slash JavaScript like this, and then we actually know that it is a JavaScript file. Now to link to the external file, you can use this SRC. So this SRC takes the path, that's the location of your JavaScript file. Okay, let me not mix both of them, because the thing is this: if I give this thing an SRC and I also try to use the inline method at the same time, it will ignore whatever is inside this script tags. It won't execute this. It will actually go to this one directly. So they should not be the same. And you can have as many as you want on the same page. It's not compulsory. There's no rule that says you should just one. It's even better if you have more than one. So you should separate the different functionalities. For example, if you have something that does maybe login, for example, it's best you put it somewhere else entirely. That you create its own script for it, its own JavaScript file for it. And if you have something else that does something like maybe charts, it's best to create its own separate JavaScript file for it, and then you can link both of them. Now, this part is actually relative in the sense that it's related to the location of the file you are referring from. For example, if I want to select this particular JavaScript file, I could do this. You can see a list of all my files. So this is it. So let's refresh this page again and see if it works. Can you see it? Hello world from file. Hello world. It works. So let's just okay. There's one more concept I would like to treat before we proceed. Now, your DOM, the way JavaScript is built, your DOM actually also you can when you want to actually write your JavaScript in this case, any variable you declare inside one script or one file that you've linked to this page, every other file has access to it. Now look at it. If I do this, um, full equals bar, I could just come here and do full. Now look at it. I created the variable here inside this one right here, and then when I wanted to print out the value, I printed it from inside this JavaScript file. That is actually bad. It can be very disastrous. So what happened there is that this variable was declared in the global scope. That it was declared on the window object. Okay, sorry, let me mention that as well. Let me talk about that as well. Now, the way your DOM is, it starts with that's what the topmost element in your DOM is actually the window element. When you're it's called the window element. The window element represents this particular browser itself. That's this very web page itself is what the window object represents. Then everything else is inherited from the window object. Your body, your head, everything else is inside that window object. So when you say something is declared in the global scope in a DOM, you're actually talking about the window object. So this foo is declared in the global scope in this case, which means any file at all that will create. Oh, sorry. Any file at all that will create would have access to the value of foo, which like I said can be very disastrous. Think about this situation. Think about a situation where I now declare another variable here. Let me add one more file. Now, okay. So can you see what happened there? The value from this JavaScript file here overwrote the value, the overrode the value I actually gave to this variable here, which means there's more or less like an inconsistency. I can't actually be sure of what the value of foo would be at a particular time. So what happened is the again it is executing in linear order in the sense that it's executing from top to bottom. So this foo was the one I declared first and I gave a value. Then I declared that same variable again in another file and I gave it a value. And then in this third file, when I printed out the value, it took the value of the last one. So imagine both of them were actually changing the values dynamically. Maybe they were both changing it every, say, 10 seconds or something. I can't actually predict that this is the particular value that will be inside foo at a particular point in time. That wouldn't. So that is why you should never declare your variables in how do I put it, in your global scope. It doesn't make sense. So now to avoid doing that, you can use something we call an IFI. I'll spell it out. IFI. That is immediately invoked function expression. Immediately invoked function expression. So it's a very common pattern in JavaScript in the sense that it's helps you remove variables from your global scope. Now, one of the major reasons why we don't use var any longer is because it is not scoped to a particular block of code. If you declare a variable using var, you are not actually declaring that variable where you declared the variable. So the scope extends more than where you actually declared it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Now, say I have, sorry, I declare this variable var a, or let me declare a. Let me have a function, and let me declare it here. Function. Oh, sorry, um, okay. I think my browser is a bit modern, so you might not actually notice that problem here. But what I'm trying to say is this: your var, it's not actually scoped to a block of code, which means if I declare it somewhere, I'm not the value, the scope doesn't actually begin where I declared it. The scope extends more than that. It starts at the beginning of the file. Okay, it starts at the beginning of the file, which is actually bad. That is why we now use things like let. But the problem is that you can't actually let go of var completely because of people that make use of older browsers. Because of people that make use of older browsers, you can't go off var completely. So that is why we still need to use it most of the time. Now, what your if does is that it removes the declaration of your variables, it removes your variables from the global scope, and it forces those variables to be scoped to a particular block, to that particular block. Now, let me show you an example of what an if looks like. So look at this. If I declare a variable this way, if I declare a function rather this way, do you know I actually just declared this function? It has not been called. So not until I do this, not until I do this, that is when your function actually gets called. Now, what I did here is I had to actually call the name of the function, and then I had to put the parentheses for it to know that okay, it's not just a variable I'm using. I'm actually calling a function. Now, your immediately invoked function expression is more or less like a way that allow a method, a pattern that allows you to call your function immediately after you've declared it. So it's allow it look at this pattern now, for example. Like I said, when I do this without calling that function, all I did was to create a function expression. This is a function expression. So not until I actually call it using this, that is when the function actually gets called. So let's just test it. So like, and then if you come here, hello, if you come here, you actually see your hello world. There you go. Now, if I want to create an ify, I could make this function execute immediately without having to actually write this test like this before it actually executes. So to create an ify, we would do something like this. So can you see? I didn't call the test, I didn't call that function, but you can see it's actually executing immediately. So this is an anonymous function. No, if is not the same as wasting. Wasting is what I was actually explaining earlier. That when you declare a variable, it's not using var. It's not actually scoped to the block you created it in. So that's what hoisting is. Hoisting is in the sense that if you declare the variable, your JavaScript actually hoists that variable at the beginning of your file, not in the scope where you actually declared it. So in the case of ify is more or less like a pattern that helps you execute your function immediately. That's why it's called immediately invoked. That is, you're invoking that function as soon as you declare it. Immediately invoked function expression. So, sorry, a minute. I'm trying to think up an example of okay. All right. Okay, so let's continue. So it's not the same thing as hoisting. Does anybody have any questions about ify before I continue? Like I said, look at it. This is an anonymous function. It's a nameless function. And then as soon as I declared it, I actually invoked the function immediately. By invoking, I mean I actually called that function immediately. And then the value of the function executed. Now, look at what I did here. No, you cannot. Sadiq Alabi, no, you cannot. Okay, do you mean can you actually make this an arrow function? Let's test it. It should work anyways. Yeah, you can do that. You can make it an arrow function. So look at what I did here. I created this function and I wrapped it inside. I'll explain that in a bit. I created a function and I wrapped it inside. Um, I wrapped it inside some brackets, like some parentheses like this, and then I call this immediately using this. If I remove this, the function wouldn't not get executed instantly. Can you see? There's no hello world. So it's more or less like I created a function and I called it immediately. A nameless function and I called it immediately. Alright. So let's return back to what it looks like. I think it was more readable that way. Now, so the question is, how does it help scope variables? Okay, so Alabi Temitope, the aim of an ify is for you not to call it, is not actually for you to call it in another function. The aim of an ify is for you to execute the function immediately. That's as soon as you create the function, it should be executed immediately. That's why it's called immediately invoked function expression. Do you get that? All right, let me continue. Now, prior to um look at this example, for example. Let's say console.log x. Let's say x equals 5, 6, 7. Now, look at this. You might not really, as in, I'm using a more modern browser, so this might not really show you the effect I'm trying to let you show, but at least I can explain using this. Look at this example here. I actually printed the value of x and then I declared the variable x. So what I'm getting here is undefined. Why, instead of getting maybe something like a syntax error or something, or there should actually be a proper error here, not undefined. If you say a value, if you are saying a value is undefined, it actually means that variable exists, but it has not been given a value yet. Like in this case now, maybe let me say a variable y, and then if I do console.log y, okay. Now, I will come back to your question. Let me just finish what I'm trying to do. Can you see it? So look at what's happening. I created a variable y, and then I printed console log y. So the value here is actually undefined, as it should be, because I've not actually given it a value yet. I just created a variable. I didn't assign a value to it, so it should be undefined. But look at this other one as well. I printed the value of x first, and then I gave x a value later, and I still get the same undefined. Now that doesn't make sense, does it? Because in the initial example I gave, I actually created y, and then I printed the value. I didn't give it a value, but the value is undefined since I didn't assign a value to it. So which means the way this actually is in reality is that this x wasn't actually created here. It was created here. Now, this is more or less what we are writing. So we've created when we created x on this line, x on this line. So JavaScript actually hoisted this x. It puts it at the top in the global scope at the top. So anything inside this file has access to that x. So this is more or less what you call hoisting. It wasn't created where we created it. It was actually created in the global scope at the top. And then anything inside this file actually has access to this x, like that. Now, if you print after this place, you are going to get the correct value. But my point is, you should not have been able to actually print it here. You should have gotten an error. But because the x already exists, that is why you are not getting an error. So can you say undefined and x? Now, what your if does is that it prevents things like this from happening. So it removes this x. If I declare this x inside my if, I wouldn't look at this. If I declare this x inside my if, I wouldn't have access to the as in the x would not have been created already for me like it was here. So it just removes it from the global scope and it makes sure it forces it to be in the scope of this if function here. So the reason why I'm saying that, the reason why I'm stressing on this topic is that it is not actually a good look. It's not a good practice for you to create variables that would mess up the DOM, because if you keep creating these variables and then people can actually create the same variable name in other files and they can override the values, the program goes into an inconsistent state because you can actually predict what the current value of that variable is. So I'll teach you how to use it in a minute. Let me take a look at the question that was asked there. Now he said let doing equals to and doing equals to. These two variables are both global but have different scope. Mm, we have different scope with respect to the DOM. What can you say on this? No. The thing is this, you said let doing equals to and then you said doing equals to. You didn't actually explain this fully. You didn't let me know if this doing now is inside a function or not. Or maybe you just wrote it the same way I wrote this. I don't actually have that information. So I can't really, these two, as far as I'm concerned, are both in the global scope. Okay, you already said that, are both global. But these two, as far as I'm concerned, have the same scope because they are both global. So any variable in a global scope has the same scope. If you maybe put this inside another function, for example, now, yes, that could have the scope could have actually changed. But since they are both in the global scope, they have the same scope. So there's really no difference between them. The only thing is here you declared and you gave it a value, and then here you changed the value. That's all. Yes. Now let's continue. Shomai, are you satisfied with my answer? All right, let's continue. So let's redo what we did earlier, if you can remember. How about in terms of loading on the next page? Loading on the next page in what sense? Can you unmute your mic and just explain it? How today? Okay. Can you just explain in the chat then? I don't understand what you mean by how about in terms of loading on the next page. All right, maybe you can just send your question later. Let me just continue. So now, you remember what we did earlier, in the sense that we had var full equals bar, and then in any of these files, we could actually come here and just say, and then it's print out bar. Now, if we wanted to stop this from happening, we could make use of an ify in doing that. So look at these two variables. This full has this value, and this var some variable, and this var good variable rather. Let me just say good var. Would have maybe this value. No. No. Let's see the difference between the two of them. As you can see, bar was actually printed, but good var was not actually printed. Can you see? I'm getting a uncut reference error. Good var is not defined because this good var is not in the global scope, while var is in the global scope. Any questions on that? Any questions, please, before I continue? All right, I'll just continue then. So, now let's continue on to what we actually want to do today. Then I gave you an example. I said, let's say, for example, remember, this is just for practice purposes or for tutorials purposes only. Like I said, don't use your what do you call it? Don't use your script, your JavaScript. Don't write it inline. Always try and put it in a file. But for the sake of the tutorial, because I want to put it beside my HTML for me to be able to explain more easily, I'll just do that. This would not be an ify. Israel, this isn't an ify. Let me show you. Because there's no function inside this. This is what you wrote. There's no function inside this place. Can you see? It's even an error. There's no function there. So there's nothing you're actually executing. Yes, it must always be a function. So yeah. Now, you're welcome. Okay. So let's continue. What I would like to do is this. Like I was saying earlier, I like to click this button and then I like to change the value from of this to maybe hello doing or hello world. Now I could do that in a couple of ways. Okay, right. Right. Yeah, what I usually do is I'll share this file as this whole project because I'm creating all of my classes as a single project. So it's going to be hosted on GitHub, and then I think most of you already have the link, so you can just go through the link again. And I believe the classes are being recorded, so you can just get access to that and go back on it. Right. Now, I said you can do that in a couple of ways, but the most important thing to do first is to actually obtain access to the elements you want to make use of. So the elements you are trying to make use of is this H1 and this button here. Now, what we'll be doing is this. We'll be capturing the click events of this button. As soon as the button is clicked, we will change the value of this H1. So have we done anything on events? Everyone, have you done anything on events? No. Okay. All right. So basically, your JavaScript can actually, okay. First things first, then, an event is more or less like an action that occurred. For example, think of maybe you are knocking on a door. If you knock on the door, the event is that you actually knocked. That's the action you took, is that you knocked. So that your knock could actually be said to be an event, and it could trigger a response, maybe from the people that are inside the house. That they could actually answer you and be like, and ask who is at the door, or the sound of the knocking would be heard. So your action was that you knocked on the door, and then the reaction to it is that maybe people answered you. They asked who is at the door, and maybe they came to open the door. That was the reaction to it. Now, the same thing as your JavaScript or your HTML. Your HTML actually can fire an event. That means as soon as I click on this button, or click on any item on the page, or maybe move my mouse, or maybe I double click, or maybe I right click, all those things, all those little things, they are events. Now, your DOM manipulation is actually a way for you to respond to those events and make proper reactions to those events. For example, clicking on a button, like I said, is an event. Then you can actually give that event a reaction. That's, you can assign what you want to happen as soon as this event happens. That is, as soon as a user clicks, I want maybe this page should refresh. I want maybe to show. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. Then I'll explain. Now let's just remove this. Remember, always put in an issue. Then what we're going to do is this: we are going to get access to this button. Okay, to make it easier, let me just assign an ID to it first. Then I'll go over other ways we can actually do it. Now, let me say um, button one, and let me give this one an ID as well. ID one, like that. Now, like I said, the entire window, your browser rather, this thing is called a window or a document. Now, so you can actually have access to that document itself, which is what I'm actually doing here. The document, that's your DOM. This document rather is your DOM. So you can actually have access to that document, which is what I just did there. So I just invoked the document, and then it gives you a lot of methods, a whole lot of methods you can actually make use of. Can you see that? There are a whole lot of things you can do. Now, there's something in JavaScript called event bubbling. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. There's something we call in your DOM called event bubbling. What event bubbling is this: your anytime you perform an action, that's anytime you perform an event on your page, the event gets bubbled up. All right, you are free to leave right away. Just try and catch up later. Maybe ask for the recording, or check the GitHub. I'm going to push this to the GitHub. And congratulations to you, brother. You're free to leave. All right. So what I was saying is this. I said anytime you perform an event, maybe you perform a click of a button like this. Now, the events on this button that I actually performed now doesn't just stay on the button itself. Sorry. Doesn't just stay on the button itself. The event gets bubbled up. That is, this one right here, this H1 is not a parent of this button. It is a sibling. It's what you call a sibling. So the event goes from this button. It goes to the div. It goes to the head, to the body rather. This body is also a sibling of the head, so it doesn't come to this. It goes to your HTML, and then it keeps going up until it gets to the window object itself. So, and remember what I said? I said the window object is your browser. That's this web page itself. While the document is your DOM. So, since it keeps getting bubbled up, it gets to the document. That's the DOM first, and then lastly, it stops at the window object. So, what happened is I can actually undo any event at this DOM level using document. Since the event, that click event doesn't stay on this button, since it keeps going up, which means I can capture that event on this document. So that is what I'm going to do here. Now, document dot sorry, document dot get elements by ID. That is, this get element by ID now is a particular method on your document. What it does is that I'll give it an ID, and then it will look inside my DOM and look for that particular element that has the ID. That was why I assigned IDs here, button one, heading one. So I can just do this. If you look at this thing, that's I love VS Code for this. It gives you explanations. Now get element by ID, HTML element. So it's expecting an element ID in string form, and it says that the string that specifies the ID value, case sensitive. So which means it is case sensitive. If I use capital letter B, I have to give you capital letter B. If I use small letter, I have to give you small letter. So let me give it the button one, and then we do add event listener. So like I said earlier, I said that maybe knocking on the door, for example, is an event, and then that event will trigger a reaction. So this event listener is what listens for that particular event actually occurring. Say for example, knocking on the door on a door, you can say an event listener in that case would be the sound that your knock actually produces. So as soon as you knock, the reaction is that you hear the sound. People that are inside as well hear the sound, and then the event gets handled. That is, the people that are inside can just come to the door and check who that is, and maybe attend to you and all of that. So now this event listener as well requires a way of handling these events that you have actually triggered. So look at this now. I said add event listener. So which event listener exactly do I want to add? Can you see? It's showing me that it has this add event listener needs to receive a type. That is the specific type of event I want to undo. So let's just say in this case, we are trying to undo click. As you can see, there are so many events here. There's abort, there's blur. Blur, for example, is when you remove your mouse from that element. We'll play around with one or two of them. There's copy, there's drag, there's drop, there's error, there's key down, key press, load, and so on and so forth. Now, what we need is click. So for now, let's just work with click. Now, the first thing it takes is the type of event you want to handle. The second thing it takes is an handler for that event. The handler for the event, can you see it? Is going to be a callback. If you can remember, we've done callback. So the second one is a listener or an handler. So it's going to be a callback. It's going to be a nameless function. That's an anonymous function. So look at this. Get element by ID. We gave it the ID of the element we are trying to access, and then we added an event listener to it, which is a click event listener. And then what we want to do is, as soon as that click happens, let's just for now print console.log button clicked. Now let's see if it works. If I do this, can you see it? Button clicked. So it actually works. Now, if you notice, like I said, we didn't actually undo this event on the button itself. What we did was we undid it at the document level. So we got the element that anytime you click a button that has the ID of one, we attach an event listener to it, a click event listener, and then we did console.log button clicked. We could use that, doesn't really matter. That's not actually the end goal. I'm just trying to show you it works. So, but let's just use that. Yeah, button click. So you can see that. No. Now we can actually use this same. Okay, there's one more thing. This your listener here gives you some options. Now the elements that you clicked, anytime the element that was clicked, it actually passes a reference to that element here into this function. So this add event listener will give you access to the element that actually made that action. So there are a couple of things you could do. You could just get the ID of the element. You could you can do a lot of things. You can get the position of the element. You can prevent it from clicking. You can do so many things on that particular element. You can get look at this for example. Say for example, I wanted to get the ID of the element that performed that click. In this case, we're actually aware of the element itself, but there are cases where you might not really be aware of. Sorry, there's a noise. There are cases where you might not really be aware of which element performed that click. Maybe in a case where Maiwa, hello Maiwa.
Yeah,
Maybe in
hello, I'm doing.
okay,
Please, I want to make a short announcement. Okay.
okay,
So, if anyone experiences a connection issues within the next 10 minutes, please just rejoin the meeting. Please rejoin the meeting with the meeting ID. I just wanted to say that
thank you.
if anyone experiences connection issues within the next 10 minutes, please just rejoin the meeting with the same meeting ID. Thank you very much.
Right,
You can go ahead. Thank you very much.
right. So it gives you access to this element object, and you can perform a lot of actions on it. And I said in this case, you actually know which element is performing that action, but there are cases where you might not really know. In a case, maybe for example, I want to create about 100 buttons. You can't actually, it might not make sense for you to create that using HTML because that means you'd have to repeat this about 100 times. So I have a question based on what we've done in the past. Now, if I want to create 100 buttons, how would you guys propose I do that? Just give me an explanation anyhow you can think about it. So based on classes we've actually taken in the past, how would you guys propose I do that? Because like I said, it doesn't make sense. Yes, Adeyinka, thank you very much. I could use a loop. So I could just write a loop that will create 100 buttons. Do you know what? We'll just do that afterwards. But let's just complete this example. Now, in the case of that, for example, I can't start attaching. I might not know the name of or the ID rather of all those buttons. So in that kind of case, I might not have access to the ID, and I might need to know which particular. Maybe I want to know the ID of the particular button that actually performed the action, the click action. So this element gives me access to that. So I could do element the targets, and then I could actually perform. I could actually get the ID of the particular element that performed the action. But let's just continue with what we wanted to do. Now, what I want to do now is I want to get this ID and I want to change the value from hello to hello world. Let's use the same method again. Let's say document dot get element by ID. Let's say anyone. Then let's say inner HTML, and let's say let's refresh. Can you see that? So when I clicked it, the value changed from hello to hello world. Any questions? Are there any questions or can I continue? Okay, all right, let's continue then. So this is just one way of getting an element and actually manipulating the DOM. So there are several other ways we can actually do this. You could have said document dot get element. Can you see it? There are several types. There is get element by class name, get element by name, get element by tag name, and so on and so forth, like that. So, do you know the difference between an ID on an HTML element and a class? Does anybody know the difference between them? Yeah, dot right would also work. I think dot right would also work. Document dot right. So Kingsley, what's your question? Unmute your mic and ask.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
So my question is right under the heading dot inner HTML.
Yes.
If you put the semicolon, can you still do something like maybe console log something? Will
Yeah,
that be a
sure.
proper coding technique?
Yeah, sure. You can do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
All right. Yes. Yes, that's correct. So what Kingsley asks now, you can still do this. It's allowed. Can you see that? It works. So now what your ify does is that anything you do inside your ify gets does not actually leave this ify block. It stays exactly inside this place. Which means I can have multiple variables. Maybe for example, I could have a variable full A and I could give it the I could come to this file as well, create another variable full. Let me just put this inside another ify as well. Some other value. And both would not actually disturb each other. So that is why you should always put your code in an ify. Except maybe you know what you're doing and you intentionally put it in the global scope. But that is not actually, it doesn't really make sense to do that. So always try and put it in an ify. So Alabite Mitokwe, I don't understand. Can you unmute your mic and say something?
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
At the HTML, I wrote
Yes.
two essays. The first one, the function value, the name. Then when I close it, I call the essay, which is open and close bracket. Then below it, I called another one, function,
Yeah.
the document dot get element by ID.
Yes.
So usually the first one is being populated, the name full. For the second, the document dot get element button click is not shown unless I comment it out. That's when the button click is also plain.
Okay. Let me. I don't think I do, but let me try and replicate what you did. Let me just do that here. So what you're saying is that you have another if here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what was inside this if that you had there?
Like value equals to name
Like
relative
this.
or any. Yeah.
So was it exactly like this?
Yes.
Okay. And you said the first one worked, the second one did not work.
Yes.
All right. Let's see that. Okay. Concord type error. Intermediate value is not a function. Okay.
I made use of console log also. I doubt so.
At this full, yeah, that's not actually the problem. So the thing is, I've not actually tried this before because I usually just use one ify in the file. Well, I'm coming. Normalization. Intermediate value is not a function. All right. So Google is always your friend. You can always go to Stack Overflow and check out what is actually happening here. Did you hear what I said?
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. I don't think I've come across this before. I always use source one if profile. Let's just see what happens. All right. Okay. So yes. So I listen. Did you guys see what I saw on the Stack Overflow page? Now it was said that it was the reason why these two functions didn't execute is because a semicolon was actually needed after this iffy declaration. So the example we saw was not actually of an iffy, it was of something else entirely, but this same issue happened. Now, which means a best practice would be to always use semicolon. Would be to always use semicolon after after you actually create any expression or any block of code. Always use semicolon at the end. Because there are several other instances where things can actually go wrong because you didn't terminate properly. So yes, always try to use your semicolon. I think I will also adopt that from now. Right. So thank you, Alabi Temitope. You just taught me something new today. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue. So, like I was saying, where did I stop? So let me give the example of the looping and creating multiple elements, and then we'll move on because I've spent too much time on this already, and I should not have done that. So now, this has been wrapped up. So let me just leave this as is. Now, let's say I want to create a couple of buttons. Maybe I want to create about 10 buttons. Let's just create a div. Okay, now let me just give it an ID. Or let me just use one other method. Now, let's do this. Get element by tag name. Now let's give it a tag name. Let's say div. Now, as you can see, there are multiple divs on this page. There's more than one. So how do we actually know which one we want to refer to? In this case, we want to refer to the second one. So let's just console.log this and let's see what it gives us. Can I see it? So what happens is that when you have multiple, you get it in an array form. Look at this. We have div1 and we have div2. Can you see that? Div1, div2. We have it in an array form. So what we want is the second div, which means we can do this. You can just say because let's console.log that and let's see what we get. Can you see? So we actually have the second div. Now let's see if it works. So what I want to do is this. I want to create about maybe 10 buttons and just put it inside this div. So can you see? We have two functions here to help us with that: append and append child. Oh, let's just test this and see if it works. So let's just say inner HTML and let's make it hello there. Can you see it? So it works. You have access to the second div now. Now, let me create the buttons. Let's say for var I equals 0, I less than, let's say 11, I less than or equal to 10, I plus plus. Now what I want to do is second div append child, and I want it to be a button. Let me just print the I inside. Like this. Oh, sorry. Um, sorry, a minute, a minute, a minute, a minute, a minute. Let's just, cool. Okay, let's do this way. All right. So can you look at what I did here? I got access to the second div by doing get elements by tag name, and then since we have two divs, it's going to present it to you as an array. Now, this is the second div. This is array of index 0, this is array of index 1. And then I actually created the buttons using a loop, document of create elements, and the button of inner HTML. I assigned number and the index of the button to it, and then I appended it to this second div here. So just like that, we have about 10 buttons. I mean 11 then. Well, we have 11 buttons, just like that. Now, I was saying something about knowing which element actually clicked the what do I call it? Which element was actually clicked. And I said in the case of this example that we gave earlier, you actually do know. But there are cases where you might not know. So in those cases, there are other ways you can actually manipulate the DOM in those cases. But I won't be able to explain any longer because of time. So I'll just move ahead to the next thing I want to actually do. So if you need, maybe if there's enough time tomorrow, I will actually explain. And if you're eager to know about it, you can also read up on it or contact me. I'll be willing to talk about it with you. So let me move on to the next thing. Now, the next thing is Ajax requests. Now, Ajax stands for asynchronous. Sorry, a minute. Let me mute my mic for a minute. I want to ask something. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I just needed to ask about something. Now, let me just create the file. So, as usual. Now, Ajax stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So, it is a way for you to actually make requests to a server without having to refresh the page. the way things used to work in the past, using maybe something like the PHP, is if you needed to perform an action that requires you communicating with the server somewhere, the page you most of the time needed to actually refresh, because you needed to click maybe a button that would maybe fetch their information and then put that information into the page and load the information with the page. But Ajax presents new opportunities in the sense that you can actually make that request without you having to trigger a reload. The page doesn't really need to reload. So that is basically what Ajax does for you. It helps you make requests to a server without you having to actually reload that, without you actually having to reload the page, which means it is much actually faster than the way things were being done in the past with maybe other languages like PHP. So it makes your web page more dynamic, and it really makes a lot of sense. Now, what we're going to be doing is this. Where initially I think I had prepared. Okay, yes, I already prepared something for it, which is this. Now, look at this. We have something called an XML HTTP request. Remember, I said Ajax means asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Now, this XML HTTP request is a raw object that you can actually use to make your requests. So basically, what I want to do here is this. I want to make a request to a web page, to a server rather, that holds information about Star Wars. And the person I want to make a request about would be, I think, Luke Skywalker or someone. I'm coming. Let me just open the web page. So yes, I didn't spend. Now look at what happened there. I will still display something on the web page, but let me just go through this very quickly. Now, this is the information I actually fetched from the server I wanted to, and this is the code I used to do it. Yeah. So this information contains the name of the Star Wars character I'm looking for, contains his height, his mass, his hair color, skin color, and so on and so forth. So this information is not something I actually put here. It exists in a database somewhere, and I made a request for it, and then I actually got that information back. So this XML HTTP request is a raw object that exists in your regular JavaScript that you can actually use to make that request. So what we just did here is we opened that web page and we made use of a get. Have we done? Okay. So Gloria. Okay, all right. Thank you. That makes sense. Let me just do it this way. So what we did here is, have we done anything about HTTP methods, like methods for making requests? Has anybody done anything on that? You guys? All right. Okay. So basically, when you want to make a request, there are a couple of HTTP. They call them verbs. So there are a couple of actions you can actually take. They call them verbs. Now you have your get, you have your post, you have your put, you have your delete, you have patch, and so on and so forth. So it's more or less a backend thing, basically, but you can talk about it here. Now, your get, you make use of your get method anytime you want to get information about something. So your get is usually, your get doesn't have to do with manipulating or changing any information. The only thing it does is get information. That's why it's called get. You make use of your posts when you want to securely, when you want to actually change something on a web page, or when you want to actually change something rather on your server. So your post sends the request and then you handle it on the server there. The reason why you need to use a post for changing information, or for creating new information rather, use your post to create new information, not change. Use your post to create new information. The reason why you need to use your post is this: your get is not meant to send data that is not secure, because your get doesn't, it everything it needs to do, there's no inner workings, there's no inner way for you to actually send it. Your get only deals with your URL or your URI or your URL, yeah, as the case may be. It only deals with this. So if I want to send any extra information to this particular server, I have to put everything in this URL. say for example now, I wanted to actually log a user in. Now, if I was to use get for that, that means I would attach the user's password and his username just here. I'll do it right here. Okay, let me show you a real life example here. Let me see. Okay, look at this. Look at this. Now, right here, this is Google themselves, and here they are using a get request. So the parameters this get is passing to their own server is that this queue is passing my search, what I actually searched for, is sending it to their server, and then it's passing information about the browser, which is this AQS, and some other things like that. Can you see it? Now, the only reason they used get in this situation is that this information doesn't contain anything sensitive. It doesn't contain your password or anything like that. That's the only reason why get was used in this case. If you contain your password, they will never use get. So the post is when you need to create new information. Maybe you want to create a new user, for example, or you want to maybe log a user in. Is when you are logging a user in, you are creating a new session for that user. So you are actually still creating something. So in that case, you need to use post. Now, the difference is that post can send information without it being published openly like this. So when you make a post request, it can embed your information inside that request in a very secure manner, and then to send it to the server. The server would interpret it and give you back whatever information you need. Then in the case of put is when you need to update information on your server. And then in the case of delete, that is when you need to delete information on the server. You can read more about it. Just Google HTTP verbs like this. So you can see it. You can just Google that and read more about it later on. Now, we used get here, and then I gave it the URL where I want to actually get that information from. So this you can let me just give you this. Let me just go to this website. So basically, it contains information about several Star Wars characters. This is Star Wars API. Now, I chose this one because you don't really need to have maybe a key or any authentication before you can access it. That's why I actually chose this particular API. You can just go through it during your free time. So, yeah, I'm getting information about Luke Skywalker. This is sending it, and this is why I said earlier about event handling. This HL will already state change. It's actually an event handler. What it is saying is that when the information I need has come back, handle it inside this code block. So as soon as the information from that website from that website is back and it is ready and the status was actually successful, then it is going to print out the response text. And the response text is, well, okay, I think it is neater in this form. Can you see it here? The same thing I actually fetched here, because see, the same thing I fetched here is what we actually have here. So air color, skin color, eye color, and all of that. The same thing we have here. Yes. So now we're not going to be making use of this XML HTTP because I only used it to describe something. I only use it to describe how it is done, and I would also like you to see how easy it is going to be using other libraries like Axios and the likes. Because, for example, let me just diverge a bit. I used to like Domino's Pizza a lot, but they actually tasted Debonaire's Pizza. I'm not advertising for them, but they actually tasted Debonaire's Pizza. Was there I knew Domino's Pizza was just like bread. So it's the same thing in this case. I'm showing this XML HTTP request for you to see how difficult it can be to make a request. Because imagine having to do this a couple of times. It's going to be too stressful. So I'll show you something else now. It's a library called Axios. And it's actually my favorite library for using for making requests, HTTP requests. So me showing you this is for you to be able to appreciate this. Now you can just Google Axios or go to GitHub and look for Axios, and then you get this. Now the description says it is a promise-based HTTP client for the browser and Node.js, which means you can use it in both Node.js and the browser. Now, look at it. To make use of it, the installation is, if you are using Node.js, you do npm install Axios. And if you are using your CDN, if you are using your browser, you can just include it like this. So I'll leave this here, and then I'll create another one and say, let me just drag this. I'll create another one and say Axios example. So yes, again, like I said, do not include your script at the beginning of your HTML file. Always put that somewhere. So what a CDN is this? A CDN is more or less like where people host JavaScript files or CSS files for you to actually link to. If you notice, I don't have this particular file in my what do you call it? I don't have it in my own file system or in my own project. So a CDN just helps you host all those documents that you need and you don't want to host by yourself. A CDN is fast, it's really fast. So you might not really notice any form of delay in fetching these documents, except the document is very heavy. Sorry. Except the document is very heavy. All right, except the document is very heavy. That is when you might actually notice a little bit of a downtime, a little bit of a delay in fetching the document. So what we did here is we are referring to Axios using a CDN. Now, just like that, Axios already exists on this our HTML document. Let's see if we get an error or not. I don't think it should be an error. Okay, this is the first example. Sorry. Now, this is where the promises we did will actually come into use. So there are no errors. That's good. So the full meaning of a CDN is content delivery network. People host files, static files on a CDN, and then you can actually access it. So there are no errors. Now we want to do the same thing we did here using Axios. So looking at the documentation, it is said you can actually use Axios this way. You can actually use Axios this way. So in browser, in your browser, you can use Axios this way. They've already given you a documentation on how it works. Now you're going to ignore this because we're using it in the browser. I'll show you how to use it in Node. If you're using it in Node, this is what you have done. Because if you're using it in the browser, you can just directly say, now look at this. I'm going to use it after, not before. If you use it before, Axios would not have been included yet, and you get an error. So I'm going to use it after. So since we already have Axios, I just use Axios.get the same way we do here. I'm copying this actually, and then you can use them. Let's just do console.log. So see there's an error. You can use them. Catch. You can save. Moment of truth. So look at this. It worked. Now, remember, seeing this example, we had that many lines, about, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say this is the whole line. 5, 6, 7, 8, like that. I counted it correctly. So we actually have a lot of lines for something very simple we wanted to do. But in the case of Axios, the entire code was put in just one promise request. Now, this is the status. This is information about our request, the status text. This is the data we actually asked for. Can you see? It's better packaged in this case. This is the information we requested for. Can you see it? Gender, male, like that. Worker and like. So this makes much more sense than using your raw XML HTTP request object. So any questions on this before I continue? Any questions? No questions. All right. We'll just continue. Now, that is basically how you make your. Okay, Adeyinka, can you unmute and tell me what don't you understand exactly? Let me explain.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Adeyinka.
From where you were trying to get all the syntax and everything you used, like I did not get all those things.
So is it this Axios or the last one as well? So I'll know where to start my explanation from.
The Axios.
The Axios, all right. So that means you understand why I was explaining here in this XML HTTP request. If you don't, it's fine. You can just say it.
I don't understand this too.
All right. So what I'm saying is this. Remember the last class, I was explaining about promises and I was explaining about asynchronous operations, how they work. Can you remember that?
Yes.
And I said it happens simultaneously, which means when I send a request, I don't have to wait for the response before
Okay.
I can perform another thing. You can remember that, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. So now, what is happening here is this. In that the last time we used what do you call it? We used set timeout to portray maybe a fetching data from the server. So we just use set timeout to introduce a little bit of a delay, since your server will not respond to you immediately. So what in this case, what we are now doing in this case is that we are actually making a proper request to a proper server. We're not using set timeouts in this case. We're using a proper request to a proper server. Now, for you to fetch that information, you need to perform an Ajax operation. So your Ajax operation is what is going to um, communicate to the server, tell the server what you need, and then it is going to get whatever the server gives it. It's going to return it back to you, and you'll be able to make use of it. Now, in this case of the XML HTTP request, this one is a callback. Can you see it? So as soon as if this one is an event handler rather, as soon as the operation is finished, this event handler is going to get that information and is going to bring it to you. Do you get that?
That XML HTTP request, is
Yes.
it in what's it called, VS Code? Like a
No, it's in
keyword.
JavaScript. It's in JavaScript. VS Code is an ordinary text editor. It doesn't have anything in itself. But this XML HTTP request exists in JavaScript. It's a JavaScript object that is used to perform operations like fetching data from the server and things like that. Anything that has to do with communicating with an external server, you have to use this XML HTTP request to do that. Even Ajax itself is based on XML HTTP requests. The only thing they did is they removed a lot of the stress for you, and then they just made it very simple. Do you get that? The same way you have things like your
Okay, so
array, the
already
same way
state
you have,
challenge.
yes, already state change. So this is an event. What we did here is this. We sent a request to this server using get that we need
Array
information from.
promise.
No, I'll get back to that. I'm just explaining one by one like that.
You
So we sent a request to a server somewhere using get. That is what we did here. We sent a request to a server somewhere using get, and then this already state change is saying as soon as this request comes back, it's like you sent a messenger somewhere that the person should help you deliver something, and then you are saying as soon as this person comes back, you leave instructions, further instructions on what the person should do. Maybe you are saying this person I won't be around, so this person should drop what I sent him with somebody else. So the event in that case would be that the messenger came back with information about what you sent him to do. Do you get that? And then you have already given instructions that okay, as soon as this messenger comes back, oh, this is what should happen. So this already state changes the event. Is the event handler rather? Is an event handler. So what it handles is
Handler,
that
but it's not parameters.
yeah,
You
it
can pass.
doesn't need not every event handler need parameters. In this case, this one does not. You if it needs, you pass it to it, but it doesn't need it. So remember, it's a function. Not all functions will collect arguments, right? You understand that?
Yes.
So this one doesn't need it in this case. So what I'm just saying is this: as soon as this request has finished, that as soon as the information has been gotten from that server, I'm saying this already state change should undo the events. That is that the person I sent this XHR to actually help me fetch the information on this server. And then as soon as it got back, I'm saying if the information I want is ready and there were no errors, this is what should happen.
Okay. So
Do you
this
get that?
ready state equals triple equals 4. What does that line mean? That triple equals 4, is it mostly before? I don't understand. And that status equals
Okay.
to
I think the best thing to do is this. This what do you call it? Okay. Yeah. Look at this. So this is the official documentation for the XML HTTP request. Can you see it? So it gives you more information about it. Can you see? An event handler that is called whenever the ready state attribute changes.
okay.
And can you see? Turns an unsigned shoot on the state of the request. So this ready state equals 4 is saying that my response is actually ready. Do you get that?
Yes.
So it's multiple values. It's going to have other values. It's not going to be only 4, but 4 would be the ones representing that it is ready. That's the information I requested is actually ready. Do you get? So you might have maybe something like 3 that says maybe not ready and all of that.
Maybe there will be a number for that.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Then status is the status code of your HTTP request. So 200, you guys should also read up on status codes as well. I will probably put it in the assignments so that you guys will be able to read up on it. So 200 means everything was okay. That means the request I made was okay and it was successful. Something like a 404 means what I am looking for was not found.
okay.
You get? Then something like a 500 is going to be an internal server error. That is, the server itself has a problem and it cannot fulfill my request at the moment. Then anything in the 301s or 300s means that what I am looking for, the information I'm looking for, has been removed or it has been placed on another server. So I would not have access to it anymore. It has been relocated. Do you get? So
Yes.
that's that on status code. So do you understand this now?
Yes, I do.
All right. Now the Axios, like I said, is also based on this XML HTTP request because this is like there are new ones, of course. Like Oyewo said, the fetch API is another new one. But I'm intentionally not going into all those ones yet because when you are building, you need to consider people that are using older browsers as well. Now, your fetch API might not be existent yet in somebody else's older browser. It's like saying that some new features on your new Android phone, if you're using maybe something like an Android 7 or an Android 8, and there are certain new features it has that an old Android like maybe KitKat and the others might not have. So you need to consider people using older browsers as well when you're building. That is why I am not using things like your fetch API. That is why I'm avoiding using things like let and const. That's why I'm sticking to those ones that you're certain that they would exist in the person's browser. Something like var now, you're sure it will exist in the person's browser. Let might not exist yet. Do you get my point? So since your Axios is based on XML HTTP requests, now if you remember, you guys remember, we did something called polyfills, right? Hello? Yes, we did something called polyfills. So if in this case now, like I said, since that using that might not actually exist, but you can actually polyfill it and include it in your code, and the person would have that functionality. But that's not the point here. So what I actually did here with Axios is this same exact thing I did in this situation is what I did with Axios here. But Axios gives us a promise interface that we can use. That's one of the beauties of it about Axios. It gives us a promise interface we can use. So it makes the code neater and it makes the code much more easy to maintain. So now I'm still doing here Axios.get. You get instead of extending it, instead of now creating the object, then doing open and then doing send, everything has just been condensed. Yes, Axios is simpler. Everything has just been condensed, and Axios.get, I'm giving it what I want it to get. And then as soon as it has responded, instead of doing all this on ready state change, blah blah blah, I'm saying you should. I'm giving it a function inside. Then, okay, something else I did here that I didn't really explain is this. Now, remember your den looks like this normally. Your den looks like this. You can give it a function and say, okay, the results, and then you can undo that. You can do anything you want to do with the results. But remember that what you gave it is a function, right? And console.log itself is a function. The only thing it does is what? It prints, right? So what I just did here is that I'm saying whatever the value, I don't care what it is, that comes into then is, I'm saying you should print. I'm just saying you should give it to console.log and let console.log print it. So let me just change this and make it more expressive. So let's just say results. Okay, let's stick to the old method we're using. So yes, let's stick to this old method. Now, another reason why I didn't use try and catch in this case is exactly what I just explained. It might not exist yet in the user's browser. There are ways you can actually make it work, but it's out of scope in this case. But so I'll just stick to using the old methods. Then would already exist, but try and catch might not exist yet. And like I said, one of the method is you can actually polyfill it, but let's just skip that for now. So yeah, look at this. As you can see, when I refresh the page, I didn't get the information I needed back instantly. It took a little bit of time. Now, let's do something here. What I'm going to do is this. On this page, I'll put something like a text that will say loading. And as soon as the information has come, I will change that value. So we're going to be mixing the DOM manipulation with this HTTP request that we did here. Now, let's just do this. So what I want to do is this. The initial text is going to be loading. It's going to be loading. And as soon as the information comes, we are going to change this value from loading to maybe the name of the person, of the character we want. Now, looking at this object that was returned, you can see we have different things here. We have status, we have the likes. So look at the information we need is inside data. So let's just say result.data. Can you see? The information we actually need is inside data. Now, if you guys can remember, this should already look familiar. Can anybody tell me what this is? That's this thing. This thing that we're looking at here. It should look familiar to you guys. Can anybody just unmute and tell me what it is?
An object.
Can anybody unmute and tell me what it is?
Hello, it's an
An
object. An
object. Thank you very
object.
much. Access the values inside this object. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Israel. Which means you can actually access the values inside this object. That means you can do things like result.data.name. Can you see it? So we have Luke Skywalker, like that. So if you can see it, actually all our classes, there was a reason for doing most of those things. Now, like I said, we can do result.data.name and we'll get the value we'll get the name value inside that object. And there are other things as well inside the object you can get access to. You can have the bat here, blah blah like that. Does he have a picture? Okay, like that. Now, yes, I think I've not actually changed anything yet. I'm just still showing the loading. So look at this. If we didn't actually use the then, that's if we didn't undo the then here, there's no way we could have actually known. So look at what I'm saying here. Now, this then here contains the response that we are getting back from that server. And I named the response that we're getting back. I named it results. Okay, how are we able to access? Yeah, then if you look at the example I gave of promise in the previous classes, this is like the same thing I did. So your then is the one that is going to call this function for you and pass. Is the one that is going to pass the results that you need into this function for you. Can you see it? This is the result here. You can name it anything you want. You can name it even ordinary S and it will still work. So what you are just doing is, what the then is doing is giving you back the value. It's giving you back the data you need from that server. So since it's passing it to this function, that means you have access to it inside this function. So that's where we are getting results from. But I wanted a name that is descriptive, so let's just leave it as it was. You shouldn't use fetch for now at least. The data is not an API. The API is what you communicate with that gives you the information you need. So the data is the data. It's probably coming from it's most likely coming from the database somewhere. So the data, look at what I'm saying. This is it. We got the first time we called the then, if I refresh, we are getting this object. The object contains things like configuration, data, headers, request status, and status text. Now, what we're interested in is data because that is what we want to. I'll come back to your question. Let me just complete this. Now, results data will give us the data. And then what we're interested in the data object is the name. So that's the Luke Skywalker. Now, what we want to do is this. We want to remove this loading and we want to replace it with Luke Skywalker. So let me just say exactly, just like accessing the properties in an object. Now, one other thing is this. Let me wrap this in an ify. So this will still work. Now, let's do documents.get elements by ID. Let's do the ID. So let's just do get element by ID. The ID is content. So now we can actually we can clear the inner HTML. or we can just create the inner text and make it empty, or let's just assign it. Let's just say name. So if I refresh this, can you see that? Can you see that? It's changing. So let's do this in a more controlled way. Let me have a button. Let's just say fetch information. So what is going to happen here is that once we click the button, okay, what's going to happen here is this. Once you click this button, I want this I don't want this request, this Axios request, or this Ajax request rather, to happen until I click the button. I don't want it to happen until I click the button. So why I did this, I put the entire Axios request inside the event listener, the click event listener of this button. So normally the way it works is when we open the page, it actually just fetches the information. But let's try another method, which is as soon as I click it. Can you see that? So once I click it, it fetches the information and then we can do whatever I want with it. Any questions on this? Any questions? No questions. Okay. So I think with that, we can actually call it a day, and we'll continue from where we dropped off tomorrow. So, Ire, are you online, please? Okay, there's a question.
Hi. Hello.
All right. Okay, so Dick, what was your question again? What's the difference between Axios and Fetch? Axios is a library. It's actually a library that, like I said, was written on top of the XML HTTP request. While Fetch is a JavaScript construct. It comes with the JavaScript itself. That's the difference between them. So it's called the Fetch API. I think I've answered the question. So yeah, except there are any questions, I think I'm done for today.
Okay, that's fine. Mayowa, is there any other thing you'd like to share?
No, nothing else. It was a great class. Yeah.
Okay. So guys, have a good day. I think class is over.
Ay, you.